Well, tonight the ANC is mourning the loss of yet another veteran. ANC MP Zola Skweyiya died this morning in Pretoria. He served in Nelson Mandela and Thabo Mbeki's administrations. To tell us more, we're joined in studio by ANC NEC member Mathole Motshekga. Dr. Motshekga, thank you so much for your time this evening. We really do appreciate it. And what is sad, I think, is that Zola Skweyiya's 76th birthday was looming this Saturday. What a pity that he didn't get to see that.
It's a great pity that we have lost a great legal mind, a great mentor who, quite unbeknown to many, was behind the establishment of the ANC Legal and Constitutional Affairs Department. And I was fortunate to be deployed by President Jacob Zuma and Joe to serve under him in 1986. And I also had an opportunity to serve with him to form what was called the Center for Development Studies, which was a center charged with the responsibility to develop the post-apartheid policy, which ended up established as the University of Western Cape. I also worked with him to establish the National Children's Rights Committee and also the National Institute for Public Interest Law and Research. So he was an institution builder who never sought to project himself, but he would provide leadership in the establishment of institutions and groom people to serve in those institutions. So it is a great loss. He was also behind the mobilization of lawyers to form the National Association of Democratic Lawyers, where Pius Langa became president. Dala Omar and myself became deputy presidents of that organization. So the people that he groomed became judges, deputy ministers, but he never claimed credit for all that. We worked with him with Mama Sisulu, Sister Bernard Ngube, you know, and also he introduced us to UNICEF, the United Nations, and then established a relationship for us, also facilitated the establishment of the provincial structures which came to form the South African National Civic Organization. So he was an institution builder, and when the negotiations at World Trade Center were taking place, he deployed me to be deputy in the local government negotiating forum. He was the brain behind what we were doing in that forum. So chapter 10 of the institution was developed under his guidance, but he never claimed credit for any of those things.
And one of the ways he's been described by so many people today is as the gentle giant of the struggles. Tell me where that emanates from.
It emanates from the fact that, you know, he was Thambo's trusted legal brain. And through him, Thabo was able to mobilize lawyers outside the country, inside the country, and to give direction to, you know, post-apartheid constitutional policing. In 1986, for instance, he was behind the conference that took place at the University of Pretoria to discuss human and group rights. 1987, he was behind the ANC statement of negotiations. He was also behind the ANC constitutional guidelines for a democratic South Africa. He was behind the conference in Tanzania on the World United Against Apartheid. And all those things we were doing, participating in, directed by him, but no one knew that some of us who pretended to be clever, who had this power behind us.
Let me ask you about this, because we are commemorating the life of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela at the same time, and we're seeing in the recent months a lot of struggle icons pass on. What is it like for you as a senior member of the ANC to watch this happen, and what is your feeling about whether the generation that succeeds them can live up to the standards they've set?
You know, it would seem that there are people who had a calling to serve. Now they are being called to rest. Now all that those of us who are remaining behind are just wishing that the values that they espoused, the values that they lived by, be passed over to younger generation, because it is those values that sustained them and sustained the struggle and ensured that the new South African Constitution and the new South Africa is delivered.
Do you feel that that has been adequately passed on to the succeeding generation?
I think that we haven't done enough. They have done enough, and their passing is a great reminder to us that we are lagging behind in doing what should be done to ensure that these values, foundational values, are passed on, because without those values, we cannot sustain this democratic dispensation.
Let me just ask you about, and this refers to our conversation off air, about the institutional memory that's also lost in the passing of great icons like this, because we know individuals like Zola Skweyiya entered the struggle as youngsters. How important is the preservation of the facts and their stories around their lives in order for that to be passed on to future generations?
You won't believe that when I met him recently in a chapel that I got to be created, emulating the chapel that he took me to in Mazimbu, I was saying that it is said that I am a chairperson of Justice Committee in Parliament, but I have not yet invited him to appear in that committee. And it was in my plan just to bring him to Parliament to share with my committee how, you know, where he came about evolving some of the things that we take for granted today. So I think that the passing of the likes of Mama Mandela, Zola Skweyiya, is a great reminder that we must start documenting their lives and the values that they lived by, because those values are the foundation of what the new South Africa is and should remain be.
It's a sad time for your party. Thank you for coming in to talk to us this evening. Dr. Mathole Motshekga, ANC NEC member, joining us there.